All right, let's dive into Victor Hugo's incredible masterpiece, The Hunchback of Notre-Dame. Now, I'm going to bet that for a lot of you, the first thing that comes to mind is the Disney movie. And look, it's a classic. But let me tell you, if that's all you know, you are in for a serious surprise. The original book is so much darker, so much more complex. It's really this deep, profound story about fate, society, and a kind of obsession that just destroys everything it touches.
So, here's how we're going to tackle this incredible story. First up, we're going to talk about the cathedral's soul. Yeah, you heard that right. Then we'll meet the dancer and the bell ringer, the real heart of the human drama. After that, we'll get into the priest's forbidden desire, which is where things get really intense. We'll see how it all leads to a literal siege on the cathedral, and we'll wrap up with Hugo's timeless warning that still hits hard today.
Okay, so right off the bat, let's clear up the biggest misconception about this book. The main character, the true heart of the story, it's not Quasimodo, it's the cathedral, Notre-Dame de Paris itself. See, Victor Hugo wasn't just trying to write a good story. He was on a mission. He was basically an activist, and this whole novel was his protest song, a way to shout from the rooftops that this incredible building needed to be saved from neglect and, honestly, from being torn down.
And this quote from Hugo just says it all, doesn't it? A vast symphony in stone. He didn't just see a pile of rocks, he saw a living, breathing thing. For him, every single carving, every gargoyle, every piece of stained glass was like a note in this epic piece of music that told the entire history of France. The cathedral wasn't just in Paris, it was the soul of Paris. And this book was him giving that soul a voice.
So get this. The spark for this entire epic, tragic story apparently came from a single word. Hugo claimed he found it carved deep into a dark corner of one of the cathedral's towers. The word ananke. It's the ancient Greek word for fate. You know, not just destiny, but this powerful, crushing sense of inevitability. And that one word becomes the engine for the whole novel. It's this haunting idea that none of these characters are really in charge of their lives. They're just pawns in a huge, inescapable, and, well, tragic game.
Okay, so now that we've set the stage with this idea of inescapable fate, let's meet the people who are caught in its web. We're talking about the dancer and the bell ringer. These two are the absolute heart of the human tragedy, a pair of outcasts who are defined and ultimately destroyed by what people see on the outside.
And this really breaks it down, doesn't it? Esmeralda and Quasimodo are like two sides of the exact same coin. She's celebrated for her beauty, right? But at the same time, she's condemned for being a Romani woman. People call her a witch, a temptress. On the other hand, you've got Quasimodo. He's despised, seen as a literal monster just because of how he looks. It's crazy because they're both completely dehumanized. One is turned into an object of desire, the other into an object of fear. But in the end, nobody bothers to see the actual person inside either of them.
So, what's the spark that lights the fuse and sends these two outcasts on a collision course? Well, it's one man, Archdeacon Claude Frollo. And let's be clear, he is the story's true villain. He's this walking embodiment of how piety can turn into pure poison, and his own internal struggle ends up destroying literally everyone in his path.
And this really is the core question when it comes to Frollo, isn't it? What happens when faith curdles into obsession? Because you have to understand, he's not just some mustache-twirling villain. This guy is brilliant. He's a respected scholar, a man of God who has spent his entire life pushing down every normal human feeling. He's locked it all away. But then, he sees Esmeralda dance, and that lifetime of suppressed emotion just erupts. It's like a dam breaking. And what comes out isn't love, not even close. It's this all-consuming, destructive, terrifying obsession. And you can hear the self-deception in his own words. He cries out, "Alas, it is love." He's actually managed to convince himself that the sickness inside him is love. But it's not. What he's calling love is just a desperate, possessive need to own her. He can't stand the idea of her being free or happy with anyone else. So, he does what so many villains do. He blames her for his feelings. In his twisted mind, she's the one damning his soul. And that leads him to that terrifying conclusion. If I can't have you, then I will destroy you.
And his transformation from a man of God to an absolute monster, it doesn't happen overnight. It's a slow burn, a step-by-step descent into hell, really. He starts as this respected, pious scholar, but then his pride leads him to dabble in forbidden knowledge, like alchemy. That opens the door to obsession, and he becomes fixated on Esmeralda, basically stalking her. And from there, it's a terrifyingly short leap to becoming a full-blown murderous villain, ready to burn the whole world down just because he can't have the one thing he wants.
All right, so this is where it all comes together. All these different threads we've been following, Esmeralda's persecution, Quasimodo's pure, selfless devotion, and Frollo's poisonous obsession, they're about to crash into each other in the most violent way possible.
And where does this all go down?
Of course, on the steps and in the towers of Notre-Dame itself. The cathedral becomes the stage for the final devastating act.
The climax here is just a masterclass in building tragedy. It's like a horrifying domino effect. First, Frollo, being the monster he is, frames Esmeralda for a crime he committed, so she's sentenced to hang. Then, just as she's about to die, we get that iconic moment. Quasimodo swings down from the cathedral, snatches her up, and carries her inside, screaming that one famous word, sanctuary. You'd think that's a win, right? Nope. Frollo's evil has no limits. He goes to the city's outcasts, Esmeralda's friends, and tricks them into thinking the king's men are going to hang her inside the church. He convinces them to attack Notre-Dame to save her. The irony is just gut-wrenching. It forces Quasimodo, who is just trying to protect her, to fight off the only people in the city who are actually on her side.
So, after all that tragedy, all that chaos and heartbreak, what's the big takeaway? What was Victor Hugo really trying to say with all this? Because this book is so much more than just a dramatic story. It's a powerful message, a message he literally carved into the stone of his novel. And it's a message that feels just as urgent now as it did back then.
When you boil it all down, Hugo is screaming some pretty timeless warnings at us. He's begging us to look past the surface, to see the kind heart in the monster and the monstrous soul in the pious man. He's showing us how unchecked power and obsession will absolutely destroy everything they touch. He's making a powerful point that society is often the one that creates the very monsters it's so afraid of. It's a brutal look at how injustice works. And of course, woven through it all is his original plea. We have to protect our history, our art, these magnificent structures that tell our collective story.
And all of this brings us back to that one final, haunting question that hangs over the entire book. Who is the real monster here? Is it Quasimodo, the man who has the face of a monster but the heart of an angel? Is it the cruel, judgmental society that can't see past appearances? Or is it the respected holy man, Claude Frollo, whose soul has become something far more twisted and hideous than any physical deformity? That's the genius of the novel. Victor Hugo doesn't just give you the answer, he leaves it for you to figure out.